So a few months ago, I was rewatching Guy Ritchie's first Sherlock Holmes film starring Robert Downey Jr., and as the credits on my TV screen rolled, I was left a little curious as to what other recent Sherlock Holmes movies and shows there were. So I sailed off to Wikipedia and I found some interesting material. There was, of course, BBC's Sherlock starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, and CBS's Elementary starring Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu. But there was another series that piqued my interest. A series produced by Hulu Japan and HBO Asia called Miss Sherlock, where the consulting detective and his companion were both portrayed by women. This isn't too bizarre, though. We already had an Asian woman as Dr. Watson in Elementary, but the idea of two women leading a Japanese series was something that left me quite curious, George. Well, in the year 2019, the cultures between the US, the UK, and Japan aren't that different. We all have incompetent leaders at the moment, for instance. You know what's actually funny? I wrote that joke when Theresa May was still in charge of Parliament. Now it's Boris Johnson. Things only get worse. There are still some noticeable differences between us. When an American or a Brit meets someone and they want to start off on the right foot, typically they'll greet you with a firm, friendly handshake. When a Japanese fellow meets someone and they want to start up on the right foot, they'll usually offer up a slight bow as a way of showing respect. Two completely different acts that mean basically the same thing. These little differences are what really made me curious about what would happen if you took two of the most iconic British characters in entertainment history and put them in a distinctly Japanese setting. And what I found was pretty good, but not nearly as unique as I was expecting. I didn't exactly expect this to be Sherlock Holmes the anime, though now that I say that, I'm sure it exists. I mean, there's a friggin' American cartoon from Deke Entertainment about Sherlock Holmes being frozen for over 300 years and awaking in the 22nd century with Dr. Watson as a companion who is a robot. A Sherlock Holmes anime isn't that far out of the question, let's just be honest. But all the same, what I got was a pretty standard crime show just set in another country. It's nothing super groundbreaking, though the presence of two female leads is always a plus. If I were to describe the experience, it's a bit like if you set The Mentalist, Criminal Minds, Monk, or even Elementary in Japan. A noticeably different backdrop, but a pretty familiar form of storytelling. I'm reminded of a joke from Gabriel Iglesias about a trip he took to Iraq to perform for the American troops.
And the crazy part is that I saw a sign that was very familiar. They have subways in Iraq. I was like, what is it? It's Subway. Oh my God! Ew! I got back to my room, they have the stupid commercial there too, in their language. Oh my God, I almost lost it. Same one, freaking, hale, 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 samdo. Oh my God, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
But all the same, Miss Sherlock is a pretty cool take on the Sherlock Holmes lore, and I figured it'd be fun to talk about. So, in the words of Mr. Cabbage Patch,
now, shall we begin?
Yuko Takeuchi plays the title character, and she plays the various Sherlockisms you expect as a modern audience member. She's very neurotic, she's very abrasive, she doesn't really get people, and she's absolutely brilliant. A recurring point with her and Wano, the Watson character of the series, is that someone will always refer to one of them as the other's friend, and Sherlock will insist they are not friends. And as the series goes on, that becomes less and less easy to believe until in the finale, where Sherlock confesses that Wano is in fact her first and only true friend. One detail I noticed that I found really interesting was the fact that despite her abrasive attitude and general apathy towards people, she actually does find it really difficult to hurt people. In the Series 3 finale for BBC's Sherlock, we see Cumberbatch's Sherlock, yeah, I'll use his real name now, we see him take out a gun and shoot a man dead on the spot. But in the penultimate episode for this show, we see Yuko's Sherlock pull a gun on a man about to kill a lot of people, and she repeatedly begs for him to stand down until she finally opens fire on the man, and then she ends the episode in a hysterical crying fit because she just had to kill someone. While BBC and Miss Sherlock's Sherlock both have a fairly casual attitude towards the death of others, there's a pretty clear contrast between how they view actually causing someone's death. There's also a neat little bit in the third to last episode where Sherlock actually calls a Scottish professor at Cambridge on Skype who she speaks English to. And Yuko is actually a pretty decent speaker of the language, especially for someone who likely did not learn until she was already an adult. Real impressive work, ma'am. Real impressive. Oh, by the way, a quick fun fact. Miss Takeuchi was a recurring character for 5 episodes of the ABC series Flash Forward, developed by Star Trek and 24 producer Brandon Braga, and Blade, Batman Begins, Man of Steel, and Batman v Superman scribe David S. Goyer. It starred Joseph Fiennes, who played Jacob on Lost. Hey everyone, Woodstock from the future here. So, I made 2 mistakes right here. 1, the character I'm thinking of, his name wasn't Jacob. Jacob was played by Mark Pellegrino, who obviously does not look like Joseph Fiennes at all. But the second thing is, Joseph Fiennes was not on Lost. The actor's name was... hang on here. Nestor Carbonell. Nestor Carbonell. That is obviously not Joseph Fiennes. Who's smart? Not this guy. Not this guy. And Dominic Monaghan, who played Charlie on that show too, and also Mary in the Lord of the Rings films. Shohori Kanjiya plays Watto, the Watson character of this series. Now you might wonder, as I did when I first read the name, why call her Watto? Well, as you might know, in Japanese, when addressing someone by their preferred given name, you say their name and end with the suffix san. So in Japanese, Watto would actually be called Watto-san. And I can hear you going, ah, even as I record this. What's actually interesting about Watto is they took a cue from Elementary with her by nixing the war veteran aspect of her character. But they still managed to keep the trauma from that kind of story by having her be a medical volunteer to help civilians during the Syrian civil war. She was all set to just be a surgeon back home after this. But she was so horrified by what she saw, she just couldn't stand to set foot anywhere near an operating table. Sherlock has a complete lack of empathy. She doesn't really care too much about anyone's feelings. By contrast, though, Watto is an extremely empathetic character who feels things very deeply and cares very much about how other people feel. While Yuko is undeniably the star of the show, it's Shohori who has the media's role for sure. Jun'ichi Takito plays Sergeant Tatsuya Shibata. Hey everyone, Woodstock from the future again. Guess who made another fucking mistake? Kenichi Takito's character isn't Sergeant Tatsuya Shibata. It's Inspector Gentaro Raymond. The sergeant is played by an actor named Tomoya Nakamura, who I'm going to talk about next. I mixed them up because I figured, well, sergeant is the higher rank, so I'm pretty sure that since Kenichi is the boss character here, he must be the sergeant. Case closed. Nope. Came across some other material while working on the video, and it turns out, no, he's definitely the inspector character. He's still the boss, it's just that in Japan, I guess, an inspector ranks above A sergeant. Again, who's smart? Not this guy. Not this guy. Who's basically, to this show, what Captain Gregson is to Elementary, or what Detective Inspector Lestrade is to Sherlock. He's the guy who lets Sherlock do her thing so they can catch the bad guys a lot quicker than they would otherwise. And he does a real good job with the role he's given. One little detail I like is how he's willing to break small rules if it helps solve the case. Did Sherlock just break into a suspect's home, even though we don't have a warrant? Okay, I'll say me and my inspector are both off duty, so it's not our problem. If we can stop this guy before he hurts more people, then I don't care if we have to do a few questionable things. Also, another quick fun fact, the actor played the character Stanley in a 2002 production of Death of a Salesman. I have never seen this play, and I don't know anything about the character, but I know Death of a Salesman is a pretty noteworthy work, so I figured some folks may find this interesting. Tomoya Nakamura plays Inspector Gentaro Raymond, who is basically this show's equivalent to Inspector Lestrade from the RDJ films, as well as Forensic Analyst Anderson from Sherlock and Detective Marcus Bell from Elementary. He's the character who's very easily fed up and irritated by Sherlock's arrogance and the fact that they're a civilian barging in on police matters. There's no love lost between them, but the final episode actually does have one brief scene where we see that secretly Sherlock really does respect him because she believes that no matter what she did or whatever happened to him, he would still be a policeman and would never quit because he sees it as his duty. I won't spoil the actual context, but it's a pretty nice scene. Yukiyoshi Ozawa plays the Mycroft Holmes character of the series, here called Kento Futaba. Like Mycroft in the BBC show, Kento is a high-ranking member of his country's intelligence agencies, but unlike Mycroft, he doesn't use that to make up for the fact that he's a small man that no one actually likes. Kento is actually kind of a badass when you get right down to it. He often helps Sherlock out when their paths intersect and actually has a great deal of respect for her, unlike Mycroft with his Sherlock. There's even one episode where one of his bosses puts Sherlock in a really dicey position, and he straight up decks the man when the situation is settled because, yeah, you put my sister in a really rough spot, fuck you for that. I've been kind of vague about spoilers here, but the main villains are actually really well done. There's a lot of intrigue about who they are at first, and the reveal makes for a pretty great season finale. Or at least, I hope it's the season finale and not the other kind of finale. As lovely a moment as it is, the scene where Sherlock finally tells Watto that she sees her as a friend really doesn't ring true. It doesn't so much feel like it's a lie, it just doesn't feel sincere. The way Sherlock admits it is in a situation where Watto has Sherlock's life in her hands, and Sherlock is telling her that if he dies, she's okay with it happening because of Watto, because Watto is her friend. And even that doesn't even sound like a lie necessarily, it's really a mix of two things. One is the actress's delivery. Yuko does deliver her lines very well in the scene. She's not the one I actually fault here. She delivers her lines calmly and with a smile, as if to say, hey, it's okay. Do what you think you need to. I won't blame you either way. But I think she should have been directed to be more emotional than that, as if to say, I know I've been nothing but callous and cruel to you since the day we met, and I'm sorry, I am so sorry. But you need to know that you're my friend, and I will stand by you no matter what. My other problem is that they spend way too long on the Sherlock hates Watto thread for my taste. This is an 8-episode season, and it takes until the last episode to really say, I, Sherlock, care about and value you and our relationship, Watto. They actually had the perfect opportunity to finally make Sherlock admit Watto is her friend. The third episode's climax involves the villain of the week kidnapping Watto, threatening to torture her to death until Sherlock provides them with a piece of information they want. Sherlock at first acts like she doesn't care, but then the villain shows off how serious they are, and despite herself, Sherlock looks really worried for Watto, so she cooperates. The episode ends with Watto and Sherlock waking up in their apartment after the climax has ended, with Watto laid out on the couch underneath Sherlock's blanket, and Sherlock herself having sat on the floor in front of the couch. After they wake up, Sherlock admits that she repeatedly gave the villain the wrong info to delay them until the police could arrive. After being severely tortured, Watto was naturally pretty furious. Honest question to the writers, Jun'ichi Mori, Nobuaki Ikatani, Memi Oikawa, why? Why have this scene? Why not have a cute little moment where Watto presses Sherlock about the issue, and she repeatedly denies that she cares, until finally caving in and saying, "Okay, yes, I care about you. Don't make a big deal about it, okay? I care about you. Shut up." Or have Watto asking why Sherlock tried to save her. And Sherlock says, "Because you're my friend." And Watto says, "But you hate me." And Sherlock says something like, "I changed my mind." Or denies that she ever felt that way. Or something like that. Sherlock is shown to have positive relationships in the show. Why not just drop the "I hate Watto-san" subplot early? This scene does work if you assume Sherlock is lying and learned the right info as Watto was being tortured and told one last wrong answer because she knew the police would be there in time to save her. But again, when the entire Sherlock Holmes story revolves around the friendship between Sherlock and Watson, why have such a contentious relationship? I understand subverting expectations of the first couple episodes, but at a certain point you're not accomplishing anything. Despite my quibble about the relationship between the two leads, this really is a pretty darn good show. I don't want to hype it up too much. It's a standard crime show. If this was an American show, it'd be the kind of thing you'd look forward to seeing on Wednesday nights at 7 on Fox. It's not on the level of something like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, or Big Little Lies, but it's solid entertainment that you won't regret spending your time on. If you have Hulu or the HBO streaming app, you can watch this show right now. If you have an Amazon or iTunes account, you can buy this whole season for about $20, and I really recommend that course of action. I'm going to give Miss Sherlock a 3.5 out of 5. Arigato for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review. And if you did, like this video, share it with your friends, comment if you want more, and subscribe to my channel. I'm not the biggest otaku, but if you're a fan of anime and manga, check out my review for Alita Battle Angel. Most of my reviews have been for American superhero movies or other fantasy sci-fi or action type films. I've talked about Zack Snyder's Watchmen, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, Black Panther, Deadpool 2, Venom, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Shazam, Neil Marshall's Hellboy, Aquaman, Avengers Infinity War, Fox's Predator, and Alien vs. Predator series, and David Goyer and Wesley Snipes' Blade trilogy, plus reviews for Zack Snyder's short film Snow Steam Iron, the original Watchmen comic by Alan Moore, and most recently, the first SpongeBob SquarePants movie. I kind of want to talk about more crime shows and movies. Maybe hit me up with some recommendations in the comments for what I can tackle after I tackle the first season of this thing. And maybe also this thing. I've got Holmes on my brain, what can I say? But, first things first, I'm going to chat about a show without Sherlock Holmes. In fact, we're going to go back to the fountain of American superheroes. Specifically, the Superman fountain. And more specifically, we're going to be talking about a show about Superman's grandpappy. So that all said, thank you again for watching. Please have a great day. Apologies for that accent. Woodstock out!